Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Matt here. First and most importantly, I sincerely hope all of you had a wonderful holidays and we'll have a great New Year's. It's been a while since we've actually recorded a video. One of my New Year's resolution is to create more video content going forward. I want to do full flights. In fact, I got some editing software that will allow me to do that to better showcase FSFO's abilities, if you will, and also help just generally help people fly the aircraft. So that's one of my goals for the New Year's. But for today's YouTube video, what we're doing is we're out here at Bangor International in the iFly737, and we're going to showcase FSFO's new methodology to start a flight. Now, this came about through some wonderful suggestions from our support team. So Keith, Chris, and Joe that noted that several of our users were getting confused on why their aircraft profiles weren't loading, or specifically when the aircraft was in a turnaround state and when it wasn't. And that's through no fault of the users. That's my fault as a programmer. It was a little cumbersome on how we were executing that. So this is our effort to try to make things easier for the user. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get right into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our FSFO to the simulator, and we're going to do so by clicking the red power button here. Now, you'll notice this is a change. Instead of just being able to go right into your flight, a start screen now opens up. Now, the reason why we got this start screen is because of the option right here, auto open start screen, we have enabled. If this was not enabled, that screen would not open. So it gives you some flexibility. Also, if you're new to FSFO, you notice we click the red button here. If you have auto connect to a Microsoft Flight Simulator enabled, it would automatically connect that to the simulator, and then the start screen would pop right up. So just a couple of options to bring to your attention. Moving back to the start screen, let's go ahead and discuss these options working from left to right. First, the aircraft. These are all the aircraft profiles that you own. They're no longer all the aircraft profiles that FSFO Sports will be put here, only the ones that you have entered your license for. So you'll know here, I have 3 license entered. That corresponds to what's in the available block, plus the default. Everybody has the default loaded. The next is the available checklist for that particular aircraft profile. We have many users who fly for different virtual airlines, like my friend Keith from support, he flies for Southwest, but then he has some other checklists. So he creates multiple checklists depending on what airline he's flying for. So this is where all those checklists would be. For the iFly, I have 2. I have my real world ops one, and then I have the default one to test. We're going to use the default one today. However, let's say I wanted to use the real world ops one, and I wanted that particular checklist assigned to this texture. All I'd have to do is click that button right there, or click the checkbox, and FSFO would assign this checklist to this aircraft. So the next time you load this aircraft, it should pre-populate the checklist that you want. If you just use the default, you don't have to do anything. Next is it a cargo flight? No, FSFO will attempt to pre-populate this for you. What it does is it reads your passengers inputted from SimBrief. If it's 3 or less, it will assume it's a cargo flight. More than 3, it assumes a passenger flight. This is indeed a passenger flight, so I'm going to stay with no. Turnaround flight. Now, if you're new to aviation, a turnaround flight is exactly what it sounds. It's the subsequent flight of the day. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because FSFO, or excuse me, in the real world ops, you don't have to perform certain system tests on the second flights of the day. So your first flight of the day is the procedures are a lot longer than every subsequent flight that comes after that. Now, if you have the main power on, when you connect FSFO, it will pre-populate this with a yes, but all you have to do is simply go in and click no, and then FSFO will consider this the first flight of the day. As you can see, we're in a cold and dark state, so this is indeed a first flight of the day. Next, company flight. You can see I have no. I'm going to do a whole nother video on how to use the company feature within FSFO. What I'm attempting to do is for Microsoft 2024, which I have downloaded and I'm getting ready to make the switch to soon. I'm trying to the company to augment what's already in 2024, assuming they fix all the bugs. So that's what this new company feature within FSFO is aiming to do. We'll talk more about that in subsequent videos. Next up, these are your departure and arrival ICOAs downloaded from SimBrief. Moving down, I get often asked, what's this initial altitude? What this is if I dial up 5,000, when your first officer configures your autopilot, he would use this value here and put that into your altitude indicator. If you had 0 in here, then he would put the cruise altitude in your altitude indicator here. Now, it's a good time to talk about the iFly737 because this first video I've done with this aircraft. Right now, I don't have the ability to set the autopilot in the iFly Max, but we've already requested that from them, and I'm sure within subsequent updates that will be accessible to us, and we'll be able to implement that, which I will do the moment they make that available. Same as we did with the Phoenix A320. Moving down, we're departing runway 15, and the conditions are wet. As we can see, that looks like rain. So again, FSFO pre-populated that for us. We're in the United States, so our transition altitude is indeed 18,000 feet. But again, you can switch that if this is incorrect. Again, FSFO now pulls this from SimBrief. Moving down, you can see that SimBrief assigned us a payload of almost 18,000 and fuel of a little over 14,000 pounds. Along with our passengers are set to 77. Note there's a load button here. So within FSFO now, if you go in and you look at the payload, we're pretty fat on fuel, if you will. You can hit this load button, and what will happen is the first time you hit it, you'll get a warning message. Now, the warning message is for if you're flying a complex third-party aircraft, you shouldn't be using the flight simulator loader to load fuel and payload onto those aircraft. Longtime PMDG drivers will know what I'm talking about. That causes a center of gravity issue. So you should be using their EFPD, or excuse me, their electronic flight bag, or the FMC MCDU to load your fuel. However, I've used this in the iFly and I have no center of gravity issues, so it's something I prefer to do. If I hit yes, you'll notice right now that the fuel, 14,300, corresponds to what we entered into these boxes along with the payload. There'll be some slight payload variations because FSFO will not touch your first two sections. It assumes that is your pilot and your co-pilot. So you could be off by a couple 100 pounds. Again, not enough to mess up your flight, but there's my fuel and my payload fully loaded by a simple click of the button within FSFO. Moving down, arrival, looks like we're arriving on 22 left. What we can do is come over here, double click this screen, and this brings up the ATIS information that's downloaded. Now, I know all of you know this, that not every airport has ATIS information. For example, you notice this is for our arrival. There is nothing for Bangor because it's a smaller airport. So no ATIS information here, or ATIS-K, I should say, information, but we certainly do for Logan. And as you can see, ILS runway 22 Lima, approach in use, departing runway 22 right. And so that is correct. I have the correct runway that's currently in use for Boston Logan. We can double click again, and that returns us to the meter information for both the departure and arrival information. Moving down again, it looks like it's wet conditions in Boston as well. 18,000 feet is our transition altitude. Gate C31, you could select any gate. Now what FSFO will do, it will not just throw every gate that's at Logan in this section here. It will look for gates that are large enough to fit the current aircraft you are flying. So for example, I'm a 737. I'm not going to park in a general aviation small lot. So this just gives you some visibility over which parking and which gates are available to you. Our distance is 210 miles, and the computed flight time that FSFO is computed is 1 hour and 5 minutes. Moving over, this just gives us a map so we can quickly, from a visual cue, look to see if you have indeed programmed the right flight. Again, meter and ATIS information. And then moving down, this is a system check. So FSFO will check a number of critical components to ensure they're working correctly. And if they're not, provide some instructions on how to fix them. At the very least, it will allow support to better diagnose what's going on your particular flight, particular system. So the first one, FSU IPC test, That just ensures that FSFO is connected to FSU IPC. The next is the LVAR test. We used to have a lot of problems with this earlier, not so much now. FSFO will look for specific LVARs for the particular aircraft you're flying, and if it finds it, it will return true, which means you're good to go for FSFO to manipulate this system. FSU IPC current, if you let your FSU IPC get out of date, FSFO may not work appropriately, and it will check your version and returns true false. You can see I'm currently on 7.5.1, so I'm on true. GSX found, so it will look to see if GSX is on your system and started. So if it is true, if that returns false and you have GSX on your system, just restart contrails. It's been well-known things for GSX for years that sometimes that fails. It's in your system tray. You can literally go right-click and restart, and that usually fixes it for me 99% of the time. If you don't have GSX and this returns false, don't worry about it. Airport database, that just means FSFO can read the airport databases within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Aircraft detected is true. As you can see here, we have the iFly737 aircraft loaded into FSFO. If this was default, this would return a false. So what you would have to do now is go up here and just select the correct aircraft profile, and then that should load the profile to FSFO. So no more going to the license screen and double clicking and all that. It's all right here. So hopefully this makes it a little easier. Moving down here now to the initiate flight, download plan. What that does is just re-downloads the plan from SimBrief. Import flight, not everybody uses SimBrief. Some prefer to use the venerable and at the time amazing PFPX. Or if you're really a veteran flight simulator and still using FSBuild or VRoute or something like that, you can download those plans and simply import them. All you have to do is import and hit go and select the file, and you can use those systems. Calculate flight plan, you just hit the departure and arrival ICOs, select calculate flight plan, hit go, and FSFO would get all the relative data. A check system, that just does another system check on these particular items that we discussed earlier. Clears everything out of the flight plan. So there's that. Here's the big one though, start flight. So if you were to go here and you were to click the before start flow, you would now get this particular error that kind of warns you, hey, you have to initiate your flight before FSFO will launch a flow or checklist. So once we do, since we are in auto flow, it should initiate our flight. So let's go. We start a flight. GS menu is unavailable. We'll talk about that in a minute. You notice auto flow is working. So we've initiated our flight, and now FSFO has started. One thing to note, you can go back into the start screen to end your flight, but you don't have to if you have the option to auto open post-flight screen. So if you just keep it the same way it was before, it will end that flight once you upload your logbook and everything else. All right, so now you notice connecting GSX gateway. You notice we're not at a gateway though. So what it will do is it will attempt for about 60 seconds to look for a gateway, and then when it cannot find it, it will load the GSX stairs. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll just hit Control Shift, and you see the jetway is not connected, and it automatically goes to the stairs. Note, there is no GSX menu showing. That's because I have the option GSX remote option enabled. So that means no menu, but that means you also don't have access to the menu, but we'll talk about that in just a little while. How can you regain access to that? If you do not have the GSX integration turned on, what FSFO would do would just use the Microsoft Flight Simulator's embedded tools. And right on Q, you can see that the stairs are being attached. All right, so FSFO has asked us to attach the ground power. Let's go ahead and do that now. We'll go to ground support and then connect the GPU. Do not forget to hit set. It's odd that some of these features you have to hit set, but let's say on the doors, if you just open the doors, you don't have to hit set, they just open. So just be mindful of that. All right, so FSFO is now connecting the ground power. and we have the ground power attached. And now, again, remember we talked about the first flight of the day. This is not a turnaround flight. So you can see all these system tests that he's now performing as a result of this being the first flight of the day. There are several of them on the Max. Mach overspeed test. Okay, stairs are attached. We'll keep the doors page on our electronic flight bag. And then we should come up here and we should see the IRS being set. There they are. And now we're going to wait 30 seconds here. That's if you have the instant align set. You can set if, let's say, if you have 7 minutes and you want, you can go ahead and put another wait command in the editor, which I'll show you here in a little bit, to wait the appropriate amount of time for your IRS to align. Again, that's the beauty of version 5 Fsfo. It's complete. You can do whatever you want to do. Set the flows to checklist, realistic or fast. It's up to you. All right, hydraulic pumps. I just want to check my performance page real quick to make sure that was not supposed
Catering
to be.
Vehicles are on their way.
47. Again, pay attention. If you're using the SimBrief performance data, I would cross-reference it with the EFPD. I don't know why I keep saying EFPD. The electronic flight bag, EFB, to make sure those numbers are right. I've already run it. The temp is 47. All right, so now Fsfo is loading the flight plan down from SimBrief. It's going to put our flight number in and then request the download from SimBrief. Just wait for that. And it's ready. So then once it's ready, and now it loads it. Again, this is all your copilot doing this for you. And then once it's loaded, he will activate it and then execute it. There's your flight plan downloaded and ready.
Except for the SIDS and stars.
Okay. You can see real quick when he's on his walk around, there's a few things I want to showcase. But first, let's do what he asked us to do. He asked us to check the SIDS and stars. This is the only thing that you have to do for programming your FMC. What did we say? We said we were 22 Lima. So 22 Lima. Ocean 5, Kennebunkport, execute, and then we'll come to our legs page and we will clear any discontinuities. And there's our flight plan all loaded. You can hear GSX in the background. There's the catering. You may ask yourself, why is that catering truck there? What mechanism did Fsfo use to call the catering? If you go down, let's say the iFly, and I load the checklist I'm currently using, and then we go to the pre-flight flow, you can see ground catering. I have that here. You can move this anywhere you want within the flow by simply highlighting it and moving it up or down. So if this is not quick enough for you, you can move it up, and then Fsfo will call the catering for you. Again, once he's finished his walk around, you'll notice that we have ground loading. That means that Fsfo is going to initiate the GSX loading process for us. Again, if you want that to happen sooner, just highlight it, move it up, or if you want it to happen later, you can move it down. And again, the reason why it's using GSX is because we have the GSX integration enabled. Okay, so I'm going to call the copilot back a little early from his walk around for the sake of expedience.
Walk around completed.
And what will happen now is he just called the GSX. There it is. And now he's going to go into the programming our performance data within the FMC. And this is all from SimBrief.
Passenger's bus is coming.
Although you did know I did make one modification on the performance page here, so you can do that. Make sure you check your performance data before the pilot. Or the
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Before the co-pilot puts it into the system. Now notice he's using the V speeds that were downloaded from SimBrief. The reason he's doing that is because of this option right here, use SimBrief V speeds. If you wanted him just to use the V speeds that were pre-populated on the FMC, deselect that, and all he would do,
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
all he would do is click the corresponding line key to load those V speeds into the computer.
Passengers boarding starting.
So there we go. We have now the passengers boarding. The bus is here. And the copilot is running through his test.
Glide slope. Pull
This
up.
GPWS test is a little
Wind shear.
long, so I apologize
Wind shear.
for the
Wind shear. Terrain.
for the
Terrain.
sound.
Pull up. Obstacle. Obstacle. Pull up. Sink rate. Pull up. Don't sink. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Gear. Too low. Flaps. Glide slope. Bank angle. Bank angle.
Approaching minimums.
Okay, we should be almost done.
2,500. 1,000. 500. 400. 300.
Good morning.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Almost done with the test.
Wind shear.
May I see your boarding
Wind
pass?
shear. Wind shear. Too low. Terrain. Caution.
Actually,
Terrain.
this would be a good time for
Caution.
me to put in
Terrain.
the
Terrain. Terrain. Pull
configure
up.
the MCP.
Caution. Obstacle. Caution.
Hello?
Obstacle. 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 Pull up.
Boarding pass, please.
Okay, there we go. So now we're done with the GPWS test, and he's almost done with his pre-flight flow. So the pre-flight flow is completed. Now we're just waiting for the GSX passengers to board the aircraft. A couple of things about GSX passengers. Two things, actually. One, they are incredibly slow. Two, they are not incredibly smart. For example, this is Maine in December. Anybody who's ever been to Maine in December or January knows you do not wear a short sleeve shirt and shorts, and they look like they're getting ready to go to somewhere tropical or live somewhere tropical. So I wish a GSX would know what environment you are and address the people appropriately. Still, I don't want to make it sound like I'm dogging GSX because it's a fantastic utility. Fully recommend it. I just don't use it because time is just a limiting factor for me. And as you can see, it takes a while. This was originally 180 passengers. I put it at 77 because I'd be here for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, which is realistic. I just don't have that type of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording and wait for the boarding to complete, and we'll come back and then we'll run our pre-flight checklist. Okay, we're back. We're finishing up just a little over 20 more passengers to board. Just while we have a minute, we'll talk about some additional features that were added with this FSFO version. First, if we go back to the performance screen here, you'll notice there's now a missed altitude option. What you could do is you can dial in a missed altitude here. It's actually 2,000. And when FSFO falls below this altitude, once you're on the approach phase, he would set that on in the autopilot to reset the autopilot settings. So that's a new feature. Another one is reset altimeters. I have it set to 3,000. So once the aircraft falls below 3,000, again on the approach phase, he would check the altimeters to make sure they match outside. And if they don't, he would reset them, or she would reset them to match those altimeters. You notice we have a lot more room here on the performance page, so let me know what else you would like FSFO to do, and we can now implement it. I do appreciate it's a little cleaner too than the flight planning page that was before, so we just kind of moved all that stuff over to the start screen, but still gave you access to things that may change once you initiate the flight, like you may get a different runway and so forth. So that's this right here. All right, so moving back over, we're just about done with the boarding process. And at least somebody finally has a jacket on. I mean, it is -2 degrees, so.
Hello.
All right, I will pause and be back again once I think we're going to need a new bus. Okay, we just completed the boarding operations with GSX. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to run the pre-flight checklist. You'll note I am not using voice recognition, which FSFO has. You know what? I will use it for pre-flight, and then we will use button mode for the before start checklist. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested.
Navigation transfer and display switches.
Normal and auto.
Window heat.
On.
Pressurization mode selector.
Auto.
Flight instruments.
Set.
Parking brake.
On.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Departure briefing. It will be a left seat takeoff from Kilo Bravo Golf Romeo 2. Kilo Bravo Oscar Sierra. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. We'll be departing on runway 15, climbing via the departure procedures to an initial altitude of 5,000 feet. Standard reject and emergency procedures apply. Any questions?
No. Pre-flight checklist completed.
Okay, so there's our pre-flight checklist using voice. So what will happen now is I'm going to go ahead and run the before start flow. Oh, I really don't like the EFPD on the iFly 737. Everything else is wonderful. Again, it's removing the jetway, but when it doesn't find the jetway, it will just remove the stairs instead. So nothing you have to do from a user perspective. So we're going to go back, get ground support because I'm going to have to get ready to pull the chocks here in a minute.
Dear passengers, this
See,
is
the
to inform
APU
the
is now
aircraft
spooling
doors
up.
have
This
been
takes a
closed.
little
In
while.
order to push back on
We're
time,
just looking
all
for the
passengers
indicator
must
light
keep
here,
their
and then
seatbelts fastened. All luggage
FSFO,
must
your
be stored in
co-pilot,
the overhead bin
will
or under the
transfer
seats in front
power
of you.
from the
cabin
ground
crew will be
GPU to
asked
the
to make their
APU.
final safety checks before pushback.
And we're
Thank
doing
you
that
and
for
welcome
engine
aboard.
start. Again, just for if you're new to FSFO, the difference between these items below the blue line, these are things that you as the pilot in command, the captain, have to do. So set the trim, get the taxi clearance, and then if you fly for a virtual airline, start your ACARs. So anytime you see anything below the blue line, those are things that you have to do as the pilot in command. Again, we're just waiting for the APU to spool up. It takes about anywhere between 60 and 90 seconds. And then we will request pushback from GSX, and that will give us an opportunity. There it is right there. Just APU became available, and your co-pilot just transferred power over to the APU and turned on the APU bleed. Fuel pumps coming on, hydraulics are coming on, packs are coming off. Don't really need to set them to off. The iFly Max is auto. And now,
ground crew to disconnect the GPU.
So we'll disconnect the GPU. And we'll take this opportunity to remove our wheel chocks. Again, don't forget to hit set, and then your co-pilot should move to the next option. So there we are. We're all set with the pre-flight flow. Let's go ahead and run the before start checklist. This time we'll do it without voice. We'll just use button mode.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door.
Closed and locked.
Fuel 14320 pounds.
Check.
And that's what we
Passenger
loaded.
signs.
On.
And passengers.
Set.
Takeoff speeds. V1 134. VR 135. V2 144.
Checked.
CDU preflight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Free and zero.
Anti-collision lights.
On.
Before start checklist completed.
Okay, and there's our before start checklist. So now what we want to do is we want to go into the GSX and we want to request pushback. But as you can see, it's in remote control because we have this option here that we want to use GSX remote option. Not a big deal. Come down and hit this menu button right here. And what will happen is that will restore your GSX menu, and now you can request your pushback. So we can do so right now. And then since we are using the new option in GSX to
Locking gear.
pre-connect, all that's done, so that time has been reduced greatly. We'll just wait, and then GSX should ask us which direction we want to push. It just takes just a little bit. Again, this is why I prefer to use FSFO's embedded pushback. It's just quicker, but the GSX one is far more immersive. I mean, even look, your nose is going up. It's pretty impressive. All right, so we want to use nose right and tail to the left. So 1.
Release parking brakes, please.
Okay, let's release our parking brake.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
And we got the clear to start engines. Start engines. And that's just the
Starting engine 2.
example of the voice command. Several, literally hundreds of voice commands that you can use with FSFO. But if you don't want to use voice, not a problem. I use them both. So sometimes my wife is down in my office and I don't want to make it look like I'm talking to myself, so I use button mode and it works perfect. So, all right, FSFO is starting your engines. Again, this is all configurable. You don't need to have FSFO start your engines. If you own hardware, just don't use the start engine option and start it yourself. It's also highly configurable, so FSFO will turn the start-stop switches, but you can control the fuel levers or vice versa. And it does take just a moment for the engines to start. There we go.
Please set parking brakes. Waiting your confirmation for a good engine start.
You can do this yourself if you want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it because FSFO during the after start flow should confirm it for us. Okay, there's engine 2 started.
Engine 2 cut out.
Now we have cutout. We're just waiting for that to stabilize, and then we are going to start, or your copilot's going to start engine 1. By the way, the next video we'll do company, but I want to do a full flight in the Phoenix A320, which is pretty much all I'm flying these days. From a cockpit perspective, it just flying an Airbus, although I am a Boeing guy, flying an Airbus is just a little more conducive to creating desk space because you can just have the side stick. And I have those Thrustmaster accessories, so my joystick hangs off to the left, and my same with my throttles is right. So you have your entire desk area to work while still maintaining a cockpit, as opposed to a Boeing. If you use a yoke, it's right in the middle of your desk. It's hard to work on a keyboard, and you have to keep disassembling and assembling it. So that's why I'm flying Airbuses right now. Okay, we're just waiting for engine 1 to fire. And I want to just check an option real quick. For my after start flow, I don't need 15 seconds, 5 seconds will work. I meant to change that last flight.
Engine 1 started.
Again, configurable. Everything at the name of FSFO is configuration to meet your flying
Engine 1
needs.
cut out.
You know, while we're waiting, I was working on an animated copilot, which was not to the level yet where I wanted to produce it. But now with 2024, you have the option anyways to introduce an animated copilot, although they don't manipulate the switches. So still trying to determine, is it worth my time to continue to build that? By the way, I won't charge you extra for that. That will just be part of FSFO. All right, so now that the engines are stabilized, we'll get the before taxi flow, and we should get to confirm engine start, and there we go.
To ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect. Unlocking gear.
Okay, so that was all FSFO. It just confirmed your engine start. And now he's just running through his after start flows. Taxi lights coming on, start switches in continuous, flaps were set to 5 based on what we put on the performance page. The FMC set to the legs page. Again, configurable. If you want it set to the performance page, you can do that. All right, you'll notice the GSX screen returned. If you want to enter remote, if you don't need access to the screen again, and you just want to have FSFO control it, just again hit the menu screen and you'll get GS menu. It's unavailable. That means it's now in remote. And I think
tow truck disconnected.
we
Bypass
can
pin removed.
verify that by just clicking on it here.
Left is clear.
And
Right
you
is
can
clear.
see we're back in remote. So that's how you can regain access to the screen easy. This used to be the button to assign a checklist. No longer need that. That's now done on the start screen. So I think that's a really good place to end it. I think that gives a good showcase of both the iFly737, FSFO's new start screen, and I will get working on the career mode video right now, and hopefully we'll be able to publish that. With that, again, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. I look forward to doing more of these. In fact, I want to expand outside of just FSFO, just to build more of a community. That's my goal over the next year. Thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you on Discord. See you next time.